Welcome to Coventry Cathedral, a place that tells a story. Now this cathedral has been here since the medieval times, a beautiful cathedral that stood made of sandstone, created to be a place for worship, for community, for people to come together. But during the Second World War, Coventry changed forever. Now on the 14th of November 1940, something awful happened here in Coventry. It's what we know as the Coventry Blitz. The 14th of November 1940, a day during the war, like any other, people were prepared with their gas masks, they knew where the public shelters were, they would recognise the sound of the siren. That night was different. 11 hours of continual raids by the Germans over Coventry, targeting the city, probably because of the industry that we had here during the war. 30,000 incendiary bombs landed on Coventry. After 11 hours of continual raids on the city, the all-clear siren sounded the following morning. As people made their way out of the shelters, out of their place of safety, they realised the true devastation that had happened here in Coventry. 2/3 of the city had been destroyed. The shops, the factories, the schools, the places of work, but also the cathedral. And Jock Forbes was a stonemason here at the time, and he made his way over to the cathedral along with a few others to see the true devastation. He made his way up to the tower, as amazingly the tower had survived the fall of incendiary bombs. Coventry Cathedral had a flat roof, and that's where the damage had been caused. The roof made the pillars lose their stability and it collapsed, bringing the roof down with it. But the tower stood, so Jock Forbes made his way up to that tower. He climbed the 180 steps up to the top and looked down on the devastation. And as he looked down, amongst all the rubble, amongst all the ruins that were there, he saw these two pieces of wood that had formed a shape. The shape that we see as a cross. Now that cross is what we now know as the charred cross. Jock Forbes made his way down. He bound the two pieces of wood together to form the shape of the charred cross. Now charred means touched by fire, affected by fire, and it just showed the true suffering and sacrifice that Coventry Cathedral made that night. Now when the clear-up operation came, amongst all the things that were here at the cathedral, they discovered the nails, the medieval nails on the floor. They gathered up those nails and they put 3 together. And those 3 nails is now what we know as the cross of nails. Provost Howard, during the next Christmas, he talked about the forgiveness that we need. He said the words, "Father, forgive." Not Father, forgive them, not Father, forgive the Germans, but Father, forgive. He realised that all of us had a part to play in the devastation, in the war, in the conflict that took place here. And with those nails, a symbol of reconciliation, a symbol that despite the suffering we go through, there is hope. Despite the things that we go through in life, the suffering, the sacrifices we have to make, there is a hope, there is a peace, and there's that reconciliation. Provost Howard talked about Father Forgive, about finding a way to reconcile, finding a way to bring back friendships. Now during the war there was another place that was very heavily bombed. That was Dresden in Germany, possibly in retaliation for the Blitz that happened here on the 14th of November 1940. Now after the war, Coventry and Dresden had to rebuild themselves. They had to rebuild their shops, their homes, their factories, their place of worship. And the people of Dresden, the people of Coventry had one thing in common. They'd both experienced devastation. They'd both seen loss. They'd both seen the effect that conflict had on their cities. Now Dresden and Coventry have slowly made steps to bring that friendship together. This statue behind me was given as a gift, a way of showing that we know what you've gone through. We understand the experiences you've had. It's called the Choir of Survivors. And to me, it looks like melted candles. It's been affected. It's been touched by the horrors of conflict, by the horrors of war. But through that, the empathy is there, the understanding, the hope, the peace and the reconciliation. Now there's a story of a lady whose husband was away at war and she was desperate for him to return. And this artist, the statue behind me, she'd heard this story and the woman was waiting for her husband to return. And as she could see him in the distance, they ran towards each other. But instead of that embrace and picking each other up in their arms, there was things that got in their way. Instead, they had to lean into each other. And as they leaned in, they caused a bridge. They made a bridge. And that bridge is a bridge of reconciliation, of bringing two things back together, despite the things that had gone on, despite the conflict that had happened. Now, reconciliation, quite often, is a difficult journey. It doesn't happen overnight. And as we see here in Coventry, with the friendship we've had now with Dresden, we are working, striving towards reconciliation. The artwork that we have here at Cathedral, they all tell a story. And we need to learn to be brave, as Provost Howard said, to find that forgiveness and not to seek revenge. One of the most famous pieces of artwork here at the Cathedral is the image of St. Michael and the devil. You'll notice that the devil is on the ground and the angel, St. Michael, has overcome it. Now he's holding a spear in his hand. That spear isn't pointing down towards the devil as if it was going to hurt him. It's showing that my goodness, my light is better than your darkness. Now if you imagine yourself in a really, really, really dark room, the darkest room you've ever been in, all it takes is for a spark, a candle, a small match to take away some of that darkness, so you'll be able to see your hand in front of your face again. Now imagine yourself in a really, really, really bright room, full of sunlight. It takes a lot to take away that light. Now when we are faced with troubles, when we are faced with times that might challenge us, when we're feeling down, when we've gone through some suffering, you might not think you can come out of the other side. But just like this statue here, we can see that during the bad times, the good can overcome. Once the war was over in 1945, Coventry was starting to be rebuilt. New shops, new factories, new schools. And in 1955, work began here on rebuilding the cathedral. They invited architects to come in and design what Coventry's new cathedral should be like. And over 200 people applied to have that privilege of building Coventry's new cathedral. Now, out of those people, only one decided to keep the ruins to tell Coventry's story, to keep the ruins here to show the story that Coventry had, the suffering it experienced. And the architect's name was Basil Spence. And Basil Spence's vision for Coventry was to bring the old and the new together, to show the story of Coventry, but the amazing peace has come from that with having the new cathedral. It started in 1955, the work here on the new cathedral. And it finally opened its doors in 1962. The new cathedral, a new city, rising from the ashes. We're now in the new cathedral, and this part of the cathedral is called the Unity Chapel. Now this chapel is a circle, and a circle doesn't have any sides, doesn't have any corners, it is all equal. So no matter where you are standing at a circle, you're all equal. Now this chapel is very special. On the floor it is full of mosaic artwork. Now what we like to do here is to demonstrate how, no matter where you're from in the world, what language you speak, what religion you follow, that we are all equal. We can demonstrate this using golf balls. No matter where we're standing, where we drop the golf balls, just look and see what happens. So as you can see, no matter where they started from, they all made their own journey into the centre of the room, so that one day all the countries of the world, all the people of the world will come together in unity and be as one. Also within the Chapel of Unity, we have the story of Sadako. She was a 12-year-old girl, and despite all the suffering she'd gone through during the Second World War in her hometown of Hiroshima, she'd heard that if you made peace cranes, you could make a wish. 1,000 peace cranes made using paper, folding, what we know as origami. Now, she started making these peace cranes when she fell ill. But over the course of time, her condition worsened, and her wish to get better changed. So instead of making these peace cranes for her wish to be better, she made them for other people, for them to experience love and peace and joy, not being on their own, to have someone with them through their times of suffering. Despite Sadako making these peace cranes, unfortunately she did die at the age of 12. But it didn't stop there. Her story carried on, and even today we are still talking about the amazing 12-year-old girl Sadako and the things that she did. So remember Sadako and her bravery and her strength and the things that she did even as a young girl of only 12 years of age. The cross of nails is carried on as a symbol of reconciliation. We now have a community of the cross of nails covering over 200 places that include schools and communities, showing the symbol of reconciliation. Like Basil Spencer's vision, when we seek to forgive and love our enemy, amazing things can happen, as shown in this new Coventry Cathedral. The new cathedral is full of beautiful pieces of artwork, and we hope that when you're able to, you can come and visit us here at the cathedral to see some of these artworks for yourself.